1. So for context, one night at 12 a.m. in August 2023, I suddenly felt weak in the knees and had to hold on to things to get around, or I'd uncontrollably lose balance. I fell to my bedroom floor when getting out of bed to feed my cat, and when I opened my eyes I had double vision. My mom said my pupils were tiny dots, and I felt an extreme aura around my head, and I felt nauseous, and I had muscle spasms. I didn't know what the hell was happening, and it scared the hell out of me. I tried going back to sleep, but really I wanted to go to the emergency room because I felt like I was dying. The next morning, the mysterious symptoms had subsided, and I was laying on the couch watching TV, while my mom had gone to an appointment to get the car fixed. I told her I was fine before she left, but about an hour later I started feeling the symptoms again. My friend that had stayed the night tried to assure me that it was just the bottle of twisted tea I had the previous day, but I wasn't convinced a mere 12-ounce bottle of 5% alcohol volume would make me feel like dying. I'm not that much of a lightweight. So anyway, I called my mom and told her I wanted to go to the ER, and she said to call my dad and ask him to take me. So I called my dad, and he took me to the hospital. Sorry for the long intro, I promise it gets interesting from here. So, we arrive at the emergency room, and after I check in, I see a lady with her 4 to 5-year-old son, who apparently had a skin rash. Even more context, he wasn't in anaphylactic shock or anything, just a case of contact dermatitis from an allergen or something. Not something to go to the ER for. So, at first, Karen seemed fine when we engaged in some small talk, but it only spiraled from there. Apparently, she had been waiting for over an hour, and it was beginning to show. Her kid was getting antsy and was scratching his arm where the rash was located. Karen went from, "Sweetie, I know it itches, but please don't scratch," to, "Stop scratching now!" Karen met her rising. Then her kid started running around and laughing, and she told him to sit down in an ugly tone, and of course he didn't. He then took his shoes off and continued running with his mother and a couple of employees chasing him around the room. This is where Karen's temper was at critical levels, and she said, "If you don't sit down right now, we're leaving." As if he were misbehaving at a toy store or something. Like seriously, if your kid's rash is such an emergency, why would you threaten to leave? Eventually, I get called into the office and Karen jumps in front of me and starts yelling, "No, I was here first." The doctor was bewildered, and he signaled for me to keep going. I inched past Karen and watched her from the office. She continued yelling and stuck her finger in the doctor's face, saying, "My son is having a severe reaction. I've been waiting for over an hour, and I was here first. If I don't get called in the next 20 minutes, I'm complaining." Severe reaction indeed. I wish I could have recorded this, but I was afraid I'd get in trouble, and I was afraid to look at my phone screen in case my double vision returned. But I will always look back on that day and laugh. As for what was making me sick, I'm fine now. It was scary not knowing what the hell was going on, and even the doctors didn't know what it was. 2. About 2 weeks ago, as of writing this, I had just finished the evening shift at work. I clocked out after 11 p.m., having just finished a busy shift, and all I wanted to do was get home and crawl into bed. The drive home was about 12 minutes, and I never encountered issues before, so I didn't think I would this night either. I got to one of the last traffic lights of my drive. There was a car in front, a white truck, me and a line of cars forming behind me. First of all, this particular red light has never lasted this long before. It was red for 5 minutes, I'm not exaggerating, I checked the clock. So when it did finally turn green, I was so relieved. That should have been the end of the story, but if it was, I wouldn't be here right now. The car in front of the line drove off when the light turned green, but the person directly in front of me stayed put. I will call this person Truck Driver. Truck Driver didn't move an inch for the entire time the light was green. They just kept me and everyone behind me trapped. After less than a minute, the light turned yellow and then turned red. Now we all had to wait for the light to turn green. Again. At first I assumed the truck driver had fallen asleep at the wheel. It was around 11:30 p.m. at this point, and we were at the red light for a while, so I would have understood if he had just dozed off. But after the light had turned red again, the truck driver had driven forward further to where the first car was originally, in front of the line. Okay, so they are awake. Well, then they'll definitely drive the next time the light turns green, right? Sure enough, after another 5 minutes I once again kept track. The light turned green and the truck driver didn't budge. People behind me were honking. I was honking. People behind me were driving around. I would have driven around too, but I was worried I was too close to the truck driver and the car behind me. So it didn't seem like a safe call. Sure enough, the light turned red again, and we were still stuck there for a third time because of this one person. Now, I'm very patient and non-confrontational, but this person just wasted so much of my time and the time of those behind me. It was late. I just got off work. I was tired, and I couldn't take it anymore. I put my car in park, got out, and started walking towards the truck driver. I wasn't planning on dragging them out of the truck or anything. I just wanted to find out what the hell was going on. As I made it halfway to the truck, then and only then did the truck driver turn right and drive away. Now, I don't know if it's any different elsewhere in the world, but in the United States, making a right turn at red is perfectly legal, as long as there are no cars coming and there's no sign specifically telling you not to. So, if the truck driver was going right all along, then they didn't even need to wait for the light to turn green like 90% of the people in line. They could have left any time they wanted, but just did it to be a jackass. But whatever, they were gone. I got back in my car, the light turned green almost immediately this time, and I went home. I only told this story to 2 people as of now, and both of them said I shouldn't have gotten out of my car. Maybe that was the wrong move on my part. Maybe it wasn't. But I didn't want to risk driving around, and I wasn't planning on camping out at that light until sunrise, so I don't regret it. 3. So obligatory, this happened several years ago, back in 2016, I believe. My mom and I was about 30, so my mom was about 56 at the time, went out of town for a concert. After staying at a really crappy hotel the night before, because the hotel I'd booked ended up being too far out of town, the next morning we left quickly, had breakfast, and I found a nice hotel nearby the venue. It was a refurbished apartment complex. It was about 15 minutes or so after that, maybe 20, when a woman walked in, 40s probably, but it was hard to tell from our vantage point. She walked in and asked to check in. The front desk assistant would probably be an hour or 2 before they could check us in. We had nowhere else to go and didn't feel like shopping or anything, so we asked if we could hang out in the lobby. She said that was fine. My mom had her book and I had my laptop, so we just sat down. I will say it wasn't a huge lobby, but it was big enough. A couple of couches, a few chairs. It was just that and the breakfast area, and probably an employee area in the back. Plenty of room for, say, a few more people, right? Apparently not. The woman who had just walked in said that they had to check her in. Her elderly mother needed to be brought in from the heat. It is summer in Texas, but there is an air-conditioned lobby. She was told again that it would be a wait. Woman leaves. So, this woman came back in a 4th time. Again, about 15 minutes later, she told the front desk assistant that she had gone around to the housekeepers and rattled off a list of rooms that were their room type that were clean. The front desk assistant responded politely. She was seriously a pro. I don't know if I would have been able to not snap at this woman, saying that she'd double-check. And then when she did, she quickly checked this woman in. The woman left, finally. The front desk assistant then looked up at my mom and I and said, "I'm sorry, that was supposed to be your room. I just wanted her out of my face." We agreed and also had wanted her out of our face. As a hotel worker myself, you're going to have to wait if you want to check in early, especially hours early. They can only clean rooms so fast, and it also depends on when the people who were in your room the night before checked out. During sold out and busy season, tourist season, it's going to be harder to check in early, but hotels always do their best. I can only say this FDA was great. She handled it so well. I told one of my FDAs at my hotel, and said the story made her eye twitch even hearing it. Our AGM just responded in shock, while our GM said, "She's lucky she wasn't in a place like Vegas, because in some hotels, you can get kicked out for that." Moral of the day: don't be like Karen. 4. This happened about 2 months ago. I was coming downstairs, ready to help my dad install the new roof of our extension. I smelled a vile scent of something burning, and my nose starts hurting. So immediately I go to the back garden to see what's happening. I see my dad burning something in an old oil drum to keep warm whilst working. It was very cold here in the UK. Because of the smell, I stay back a little and say to him, "You shouldn't be burning wood with paint on." At this time I just guessed because of the smell, so I say, "I'll help you once you're done burning because it's really hurting my nose." He says, "Fine, go open the front door." I wouldn't have minded helping him if the wood wasn't burning right below the roof in the back garden. Now I'm outside near the front, so I did a quick Google search on the effects of burning wood with paint on. Then I hear him calling my name, so I go inside and ask, "What's up, Dad?" I can't remember what he asked me to do, but I'm sure I did it. The task must have been dull. Whilst I'm out back, I go to the oil drum to find out, lo and behold, that inside the drum was wood with a red paint on it. So I say, "You shouldn't be burning that wood, it's harmful for you." "I'm going out front until you're done," he replies, "Fine." As I walk to the front of the house for fresher air, I see him loading another red piece of wood in the drum. About 10 minutes pass while I'm outside. I hear my name again, but it was quieter this time, so I go inside to find Dad being unhappy. He begins with, "Where have you been? I've been calling your name for about 10 minutes. I said outside because the smell was painful to my nose. I could still smell the stench when I was at the front of the house. He shouts, "It's only a bit of wood, it won't kill you." Then I say, "It's bad for you." He sits down and starts shouting even louder, you motherfucker," and so on. "You've been outside doing nothing whilst I'm here working on the house." I'm lost for words at this point, so I kind of freeze and just look at him. Then he starts crying to me and says I've been so stressed out by this roof and no idiot wants to help me. Besides the roof, I've been helping for the past 1.5 years on renovating this house, by the way. He continues crying, "No one is here to help me in case I fall." I say, "I'd help you earlier if you stopped burning the wood." He says, "Don't be a pussy, I'll just move it further away." We then go outside to the back, and he moves the oil drum about 3 meters further down the garden away from the roof. And that's how my about 6-hour day started with helping my dad. 5. The following story is a continuation of a post it featured in either Wedding Hijinks or entitled Parents. I last left off with the approach to my wedding day, which was over a month and a half away, but has now been and gone, and my wife and I are happily married. Having been told by Dad that he doesn't give a care about my fucking wedding, and that he and stepmother would not be coming to our wedding, I resumed my approach of it being best not to say anything, as I had nothing nice to say. Stepmother repeatedly insisted that this argument was all my fault, and that the attempts to change decisions for our wedding by Dad was my fault, and that my wife, who had become upset by this on top of several historic events, where Dad had caused problems and which had previously almost led me and my wife to break up, and that I was the one upsetting my wife. This could not appear to have been further from the truth, as my wife was very supportive of me throughout this incident. As this had again escalated, I told my best friend, who was due to get married in a month or so. I thought this best as Dad and stepmother, who knew my best friend, were also invited to the wedding. I did this to ensure he was aware of the situation, not to get them disinvited, as it is not my place to make such decisions. Best friend appreciated the warning, and said that my wife and I were not going to be sat to eat with Dad and stepmother. But he wanted them there regardless. Again, I wasn't thrilled to have to see Dad and stepmother, but it was not my place to demand or ask him to uninvite them, as it is their day to have their way. Best friend's wedding day came. I, acting as a groomsman, had plenty to do, and was rushing about leaving wife to socialize with the various friends of mine and best friend's friend group who were attending when, after a short while, Dad and stepmother arrived. They saw me and shot past, with Dad chucking me the dirtiest look I have ever received. I wasn't shocked, however, and frankly, I'm glad he didn't try to approach me, as I was not in the mood for his bull, and didn't want to cause a scene at my best friend's wedding. The day ran smoothly, with no interaction between me, Dad, or stepmother. And with my brother and brother's girlfriend eventually attending for the reception, and likewise ignoring my existence. I was thrilled not to have to deal with my brother either, as he is a typical older brother who seems to think the world revolves around him. Shortly after the reception began, I noticed Dad and stepmother had left. I continued and thought nothing of it, with the night ending seemingly without event. Several days later, I learned from my mother that stepmother's father had passed away during my best friend's wedding day. I very much liked stepmother's father and was truly saddened to hear of his passing, although considering it may be petty to not drop the no-contact approach I had taken, I sent stepmother a card expressing mine and my wife's condolences, but decided we didn't want to make further contact or attend the funeral, to avoid making a difficult day worse for stepmother and her family. Dad texted saying he wanted this to be over, but still making every attempt to avoid taking responsibility for the initial problems caused, whilst also attempting to use the death of stepmother's father to manipulate me into giving in. I messaged back stating we would see about resolving this after my wife and I were married, which was by now 2 weeks away. I had enough on my plate with last-minute arrangements and the soon arrival of 11 members of my wife's family from Europe, who I would need to entertain and ferry about for their 7-day trip and the wedding day. Finally, our wedding day arrived. As guests had started to arrive, my mother asked me to greet my brother, who I had begrudgingly allowed to attend. She walked me over to where he stood and I said hello, to which he completely blanked me and walked away. I couldn't believe it. Although I appreciate he took Dad's side, as he always does, he had the nerve to attend with no intention of speaking to me, or my wife, which was unbelievable, frankly. I didn't wish to cause a scene. It was too important of a day to me, so carried on. The day, other than brother and brother's girlfriend being present, went off without a hitch. After the wedding, I knew it would soon be Christmas, and decided we would see how things were in the new year, with a view of starting to try to resolve things with Dad. How wrong I would be. I worked New Year's Eve on a night duty. In the morning, after 11 hours of work, Dad began the year by messaging me, asking me to go to his to clear his attic out. I was slightly dumbfounded, as I only had 2 or 3 boxes of childhood toys in the attic, and the vast majority of the items in the attic belonging to my brother and Dad. Further to this, Dad and I had not resolved our issues or begun to talk again, and I couldn't work out in what universe he thought I would drop everything to come running to clear brothers and his items out for him. I have no idea. Dad and stepmother became increasingly persistent in chasing me to go. I, however, remained silent. Dad then began threatening to firstly leave some airsoft rifles which were in the attic outside my address in the street with my name on it, then secondly to hand them into the police and insist they were mine. I knew it wasn't an issue to possess such things, but secondly, they do not belong to me, they are my brother's property and not my responsibility to deal with. But again chose not to respond, as I didn't want to give in to such manipulative attempts to restart dialogue. After this clearly didn't work, I received a rather abusive message, which culminated in being told my childhood toys with sentimental value, which I had hoped to pass on to a child of my own one day, were being thrown into a skip and disposed of. I appreciate I didn't respond, but found that last kick especially heartless. After this, I have now decided that it is best to go no contact with brother, brother's girlfriend, stepmother, and Dad. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild, episode 152. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, hit the like button. If you'd like early access to the videos, then join us on my Patreon. The link to that is in the description, as is the link to the Hellfreezer merchandise store on Teespring. If you enjoyed today's video, why not leave a tip? You can do that by clicking on the heart with the $ in the middle below the video. You don't have to do that, but it's very helpful and I do appreciate it. Okay, this one goes to Ryo Trey. Their birthday is today. No other information, so however old you are, I hope you're happy to be that age, and that you make sure you take time to treat yourself. The older you are, the more treats you get. I think that's how that works. Oh wait, doing a little math, you were 22 at the time of the story you sent me. That was in 2019, so that means you're probably 26, 27 right now. Well, a very happy birthday to you, and I hope you have a great day. And if you're working, well, make sure you take the next available day off to treat yourself. And before I go, I'd like to sing Happy Birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ryu. Happy birthday to you. Alrighty, and before we go, let's have today's question and answer of the day. And today's question is... And today's question comes from Newcomb on the Discord. And their question is, what's the most eerie sound you've ever heard? Well, that's quite simple for me. After my mother died, I could hear her voice shouting on me to wake up for several weeks afterward. Didn't scare me, but it did strike me as being, is this grief or is it actual ghosty stuff? So, that's mine. What's yours? Why don't you leave your answer in a comment below? And now, today's answer of the day. Let's take a look. And this is in response to what is the first thing you think of whenever you see a weather alert in your area. And this answer comes from Nova Brilliant 4510. Since we've been without power previously due to intense winter weather, 4 days, we buy kerosene. Make sure we have candles and phones are charged. It was rough the last time it happened. Winter on Lake Erie is no joke. Thank you very much, Nova Brilliant. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.